Welcome to the Electric Vibe podcast. I am one of three co-hosts. Unfortunately, Hucky Austin could not be with us today, but keeping the fort down here is myself. I'm Kurt Hoffman, and to my left is none other than...
J. David Silva, and I think you can call me Electric Man.
Yes, and I changed my name to Hoff Spooky Tastic. Just Jay and I, before record, we're trying to just be as silly as possible, given the times that we're living in right.
Absolutely. And a little levity never hurt anyone.
No, man, you're not joking.
Kurt, I know that we're just going to kind of riff today and kind of talk about something, but we do have a sort of an agenda. Yeah. And I think I'd like to kick it off by what just happened on February 1st, and that was the 2026 Grammys. I know we want to talk a little bit about that. So give me your thoughts. Did you see a lot of the show, a good part of the show?
First of all, I hate to say this. I always forget when the Grammys are on, because I'm not paying attention to that like I did when I was much younger, if I'm being honest. And I know there's been a lot of debate whether the Grammys still matter. And to many of us, to many legacy artists, they're going to say yes. Any platform, any new artist or well-tenured artist, it is a platform. And given that Spotify and all these different streaming sites, which, streaming has just changed the whole culture, music and movies. Does it still matter? It does, but there's so much other competition out there when it comes to streaming. And I think, what is it, weekly? There's something like upwards of 150,000 new artists either a week or a month. And it's like, how do you get attention? So I enjoyed, I was going to tell you, I did about up until I think in memoriam. I think right at that, I had to be at work early that morning and I needed to get some sleep.
Well, let's face it, we are getting old.
Shh. With my old ass, as you would often say to me.
I often do say.
Yes, hey, that's all right. I'm younger.
You're younger than me, right? For me, the Grammys, they don't still hold. Do I think they matter? Absolutely. I still think that it's a great celebration of music. And if there's a different generation that is looking at the Grammys and still looks forward to it, I think that's great. The way I used to look forward to it when I was much younger in the 80s. I mean, it was always an event. You got to see your favorite artist, you got to see your favorite songs, you got to see some great performances. Does it have the same luster for me that it did? No. But is it still very important? Yes. But before we kind of talk about what some of the winners and losers were, so to speak, Kurt, I wanted to point something out. Let's just talk about the elephant in the room, okay?
Yeah.
Because there's been a lot of talk about, the Grammys now being a platform for social and political diatribes or thoughts, opinions, and processes. And here's my take on that. I mean, it's a public forum, okay? And at the end of the day, these are human beings. Whether you're an artist who sells 10 million copies or you're just somebody sitting in the nosebleed seats, I mean, people on stage and people accepting awards have a forum. Yeah. I mean, they have a voice and they want to make sure that their voice is heard. They want to make sure that they have a point that they want to get across. So when we start talking about, the controversy around Billie Eilish and her comments, or we start talking about the several comments that were made about ICE and what's happening in several cities, even in our adopted home state of Minnesota.
Yeah.
I mean, people are going to talk about that, whether you're a celebrity or not. And I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are about using, that type of award ceremony as a forum for bringing these points up.
I'll go one step further and bring in Bruce Springsteen into the conversation as well. He was not at the Grammy Awards, but recently his song "Streets of Minneapolis" has factors into that, and I'll get into that. So Bad Bunny, who was the first one to make comments about Ice Out when he accepted his award, he is one of the most streamed recording artists of all time. I don't think people realize, you look at all the different factors, there's a lot of controversy that, he wasn't being treated like an American citizen. Okay. So there's that part. Why is he doing the halftime Super Bowl halftime? I'm like, wait a minute. Let's see. I know the Rolling Stones aren't from America. There's a lot of Paul McCartney's not from America.
You too
Elton
is not from
John's not from
America.
America. You too. I'm thinking of all the different halftime. If you're going to use this argument that he's not an American citizen, just, dude, seriously, the times we're living are so screwed up. I'm just going to say these are my opinions. Of course, they don't represent all three of us, but necessarily. But and hockey, not speaking for hockey, I can tell you, hockey doesn't get involved in politics based on his beliefs. But when we were having a conversation, there's a difference between political differences and right and wrong. We were having a conversation about that, and the recent events just, for me, go beyond political boundaries. It's just, what's the, what is right and what is wrong. A lot of moral compasses. It's just very
I
difficult.
kind of look at it like this. If you have an award ceremony and you have people who
Yeah.
speak their mind, would they be ostracized or vilified, for lack of
Yeah.
a better term, if they didn't speak their minds? Then people, the other side of the argument is, well, it's just a bunch of rich celebrities up there partying and carrying on, but they're not addressing any of the issues that are
It,
outstanding.
it's damned
So
if you do, damned if you don't.
exactly right. And
And
and I
and
said this is not something new. People voicing their opinions. Think about the Academy Awards in the 1970s when Marlon Brando refused to come and accept his award,
oh,
and
right,
and he and he sent a Native American woman to make the speech that she
yeah,
made. I mean,
right,
this is not something new. People have been voicing their opinion and exercising their right to voice their opinion at award shows for years. So I think that it's because of the climate that we're in, the social and political climate that we're in, that's
yeah,
adding an additional spotlight to what happened at the Grammys this past Sunday.
absolutely. I'll also add that there's been a lot of reaction in the not just in the music and arts community, but in all forms. Artists back in the '60s. I mean, Marvin Gaye had a whole album about what was going on at that time with what's going on. What's going on is an entire, like, miniature book on the times at that time. If that doesn't get and Barry Gordy was totally like, no man, this is political. This is not who Motown is. And he begged and pleaded with him, and he let him put it out. And it's a stone cold classic. Think of the group War. The world
Right.
is a ghetto. I mean, where do we be? Bruce Springsteen's entire career. Let's talk about Bruce for a second, because I have a tremendous amount of respect for Bruce as an artist. I didn't always like his voice. I would be one of the first people to tell you that sometimes when he would sit notes, it sounds like he was having a bowel movement. But you look at that man's musical body of work and his lyric writing. He was a disciple of guys like Bob Dylan, who in the '60s definitely was outspoken about what was going on
Right.
in that time: Vietnam War, civil rights, you know. And Bruce had definitely tapped into his inner Bob Dylan in a way with this new song, Streets of Minneapolis. I mean, Bob Dylan himself being a Minnesota native, and a huge influence on Bruce's songwriting and musical lyric writing in particular. People are saying, oh, Bruce is just being woke, left, whatever. It's like, have you not paid attention to his entire career? I love the fact that people misinterpret Born in the USA.
Right.
Is a
Right.
classic example of, it has this triumphant sound to it. And that's a clever thing about Bruce. You look at the lyrics, it is anything but pro-war, pro any of that.
Right.
It is not about American pride at all. And so many people have used that song to bolster their political, trying to get elected, campaigns and what have you. He's refused. It's like people taking the Police's song "Every Breath You Take" as a romantic love song, and it's about a stalker wanting to have
Right.
control of somebody.
It isn't it ironic how people use songs or
Yeah,
use things like that to fit their own narrative. And to in my opinion, for instance, going to an award show and saying what's on your
yeah,
mind or speaking what's on your mind,
yeah.
it's very different now, but it's kind of the same because now you have people saying that you shouldn't be talking about what's going on in Minnesota. You shouldn't be talking about MAGA. You shouldn't be talking about woke. You shouldn't be talking about any of
Any
it.
of it.
But this is exactly what started happening in the 80s when people started giving all glory to God in their acceptance speeches. Well, back then it was, well, you shouldn't be saying that. You shouldn't be bringing religion into your acceptance speech or
Yeah.
into your time, your remarks when you're on
Right.
stage. Well, now they've kind of shifted away from that because you can see that, faith in God now permeates entertainment, it permeates sports.
Oh
Look at
yeah.
CJ Stroud, who starts every press conference or every interview he does, giving all thanks to God. When back in the 80s and 90s, you kind of got ostracized for that. Well, people have kind
Sure.
of moved away from that now, and now they're talking about you shouldn't be talking about the social and political issues, which I don't agree with. I mean, are we just going to act like these things aren't happening? Are we going to act like they're not happening to other people just because they're celebrities? It's disingenuous, and quite frankly, you can't have it both ways.
No, you can't. And I would be a liar if I didn't tell you that it's not on my mind every single day. At least every hour, every half hour. I don't know how you can't. I mean, recently where I work on Tuesday on my day off, an ICE agent had pulled over. I don't know all the circumstances, mind you, but there's video footage in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, of a man being yanked out of his car with the window just busted and just, you know, taken by an ICE agent. And it's terrifying to think that that could happen in any one of our neighborhoods, anywhere you live anymore. It's just I'm greatly concerned.
And we can't discount it because think about the people that it's happening to. Think about their families. Think about their
Yes.
children.
Yep.
Think about, they have to live with sometimes other people not living anymore. So to act like it doesn't matter or it doesn't exist, again, is disingenuous. But you can't
Yeah.
get mad at people for bringing it up and you can't get mad at them for not bringing it up.
Yeah.
It's there, and it's gotten to the point where I think that if we don't talk about it, then you know, what's going to keep happening or what's going
But
to happen.
but our beloved Minneapolis, you know, and I want to say anything we can do to support the greater Minneapolis and Minnesota state community, we here at the Electric Vibe are, with you. We
Absolutely.
consider it, Jay and I, you've talked about how we've considered it kind of an adopted second home for
Right.
us.
And
Oh, I feel
can I
so welcome every time we go there.
that's exactly what I wanted to talk about. And I apologize for stepping on you,
No,
but
not at all.
I don't want to be pretentious and say that, well, it's our adopted home state, but I think for us it is. Since we've been there, the times that we've been there, the hospitality, the
Yeah,
camaraderie, the
yeah,
love that we've been shown by people that we know and people that we don't know or new
yeah,
friends that we've made is palpable. I mean,
yeah,
it exists. It's real. When we
yeah,
go there, I feel, and then maybe I can speak for both of us, we feel at
yeah.
home.
I
So how can we not, especially and also our brother Hucky, who lives there,
was in the greater Minnesota area
right?
there.
How can we not have a feeling for what's happening, no matter what your views are?
Any of the
How
guests
can
that
we
we've
not
had
feel for it?
on, I'm sorry to step on your toes, Jay, but I'm just thinking Michael Koppelman and Tom Garneau, Michael Holtz, many of
Michael
the
Holtz,
guests whom we've had on this podcast before hockey and since, and many of those who are, were transplanted from, my home state of Maryland, Steve Park, people who live there and spend a significant amount of time, Alan Leeds, Eric
hmm,
Leeds,
look at Dr.
look, Matt Fink. Oh my God. I mean, all these wonderful folks that we've gotten to know a little bit now, and it's just, there is this sense of community that is brought every time we go there. Keith Bowie, our dear friend,
Absolutely.
the Minnesota Agape movement,
Bridget Stewart, I mean,
Bridget
people that
Stewart,
we've
Rondo, Chief
Chief
Rondo.
Rondo, and people that we've gotten to know and interact with and who have become part of the
Yeah,
fabric of our
yeah,
lives. How can we not acknowledge, in the very least, about what's happening there? So
yeah.
whether it's just in this form that we're doing it right now, or at the Grammy Awards or whatever, again, it's almost disingenuous if we don't acknowledge it.
We love Minneapolis, and I, speaking for myself, I stand with Minneapolis. I just,
I know we're going to talk about the Grammys. We're going to get back there, but we're free
yeah,
forming. We're all over the place today.
yeah,
One of the things
yeah,
that's come up is, we have a big trip coming up in June. We're going to be in
yes,
Minneapolis, Minnesota
yeah,
for a week. We'll be attending the celebration events. We'll be attending some other events. We'll be seeing a lot of people. And this will be our third year in a row going together.
great.
And I
Wow.
know, right? Come on, time's flying, right? But it's gotten to the point where if we don't acknowledge what's happening, okay, are we part of the problem? And I'll give you an example. You know, and a lot of the forums, the Facebook forums, the Prince celebration forums, and the Minnesota forums, people are already talking about, well, in light of what's going on, are you going? Are you
Right.
planning on not
Right.
going? Are you going to
Right.
stay home? Whatever. And I know that you and I are kind of on the same page. We're going. We're going for the reasons that we want to go. We're going because we stand with Minnesota. But I
Yeah.
also don't want to get to the point where we're chased away by what's happening.
Yeah. Um, you're definitely speaking for me. We're on the same page in all this. When George Floyd happened in 2020, and 2 years later, I would actually have the opportunity to go, and I drove. I want to add, I drove to Minneapolis, which was an event in itself. Pandemic still just barely coming out of that scene.
Right.
And I may have been COVID positive, not knowing it, and gotten several people sick along the way. So, yeah, patient zero, right? So, I don't know, Jay. I'm sorry, my head is all over the place with what's been going on lately. In addition to everything going on, a school that I taught at had a shooting occur. A second grader had brought in a gun to school and then accidentally discharged, not fired, aimed at anybody and stuff like that. And there was a minor injury in a classroom, and that was all that happened. But my bass player and Swiss Army knife in our Led Zeppelin covers band, Chris Roa, is a school teacher in that building. So that's what made it even freakier for me today. So I apologize if I'm a little, lost.
Sometimes you need to be in your fields.
It's been an overwhelming year. It's just like every week we're wondering what's happening in the headlines globally and nationally. And it's just,
Well,
I
and,
don't,
and and it permeates everything that we do. Again,
yeah,
we're
right.
watching an award show. We're at the sports event, whatever. It's always there. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't be, because let's face it, when the Vietnam War was going on, okay, it was in your living rooms, right?
Yeah,
They're fighting
every
the
night.
war on television, right? So I
Yeah,
mean, I get it, but that leads to the feelings that we have. I think we're
yeah,
both a little bit emotional. We're both a little, not a little
yeah,
bit, a lot of it concerned
yeah,
about what's still going on and what could still be going
yeah,
on. And, you can't watch it an award show. And again, this is my opinion, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you can't watch an award show or watch a sporting event without these things coming to the forefront, because it's still life. It's
yeah,
still real life.
yeah.
If I can take it back to the Grammys for a minute, I did
Please.
just want to say something, and I was very, very touched by seeing our fallen brother, George Gary, I mean,
Yeah.
Jerry George Jelly Bean Johnson, honored in the in memoriam section of
And
the
they did,
Grammy Awards.
I have to say, Jay, the last couple of Grammy Awards, I really enjoyed this one because they really seem to want to change things up a little bit and how things are done. And the in memoriam with two live performances, the way they had it, I really enjoyed that. And then the D'Angelo tribute, which I didn't get to watch, so
Yep.
you may have watched that. I understand there was more there too. But and many of the folks that worked with Bean, Monty Moyer included, and because I've seen comments on social
Breathe.
Freeze as well, is that he would have loved the fact that Black Sabbath was being paid, Ozzy and Black Sabbath being
Right.
paid tribute with War Pigs, no less. For people who really know the true Jelly Bean Johnson, he was a rocker,
He was rock and roll.
man. And especially when he had that guitar in his hands. And he loved him some Black Sabbath. I mean, he would, you know, he hipped me to Maggot Brain of
Mhm.
Funkadelic, which I got to see him do on guitar live, just a mind melting version of it. And he hipped me to so much of that fact that he's such a hard rocker. When you and I went to see him, once again, it bears repeating, when we went to see the Time Band Masterclass, which unfortunately won't feature him, at Sweetwater Music in Fort Wayne, just talking about his drum playing led into the hard rock drummers that were influences like Cozy Powell and John Bonham and what have you. And the fact that and I would like to believe that Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who are on executives on the board,
Right.
the Grammy board, had a hand in him putting up there. When I listen to Mr. Christopher and Michael Bland the other night on Funkatopia. Shout out to Funkatopia. We love those guys so much. He mentioned that, about being in the hard rock and what have you. Dean wrote Black Cat for Janet Jackson. It's in his blood. He loves him some hard rock and heavy metal. Loved Van Halen.
Yep.
He just Poison, Motley
Right.
Crue. He loved the glam metal, really extreme.
I
Betancourt for
for New Note. Right. And
for
I was happy that they gave him his flowers and they put the picture up there.
yes, sir.
But at the same time, seeing, Gary George Jelly Bean Johnson, 1956, 2025, still breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Still, even so many, well, it wasn't that long ago, 3 months later.
You remember when Prince died and there were these memes and shirts and merch that said, "Shit's been weird since Prince died. Shit's been really weird since Jelly Bean died."
Right.
I'm telling you what.
I mean, and
Lord,
it's gotten to the point where it would be interesting to see or to hear what Jelly Bean would
his
think.
reactions.
You remember the dinner that we had at that restaurant in Fort Wayne,
Yeah.
where I was across from Jelly Bean and you were to his right. And we were
Mhm.
just talking about a whole bunch of things, basketball and what's going on in the world and music and
Yeah.
all that. And Jelly Bean definitely had his opinions. What's going on right now,
Oh,
I could just imagine he'd be beside himself, literally. And I don't want to speak for Jelly Bean. And let's give a shout
no.
out to Marty.
Marty Bragg.
Shout out to
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Marty
sir.
Bragg,
Yes, sir.
absolutely, who we have, wishing peace and love still. But
Absolutely.
Jelly Bean certainly would have had his opinion.
He would have had a few words to say about what's going on for real. For real.
Right.
He
So
really,
let's talk a little bit about the Grammys, and we're not going to get off the controversy part of it because that was such a big part of it. But I wanted to talk about just a couple of things. The first one was album of the year, Bad Bunny. Okay, and I mean, I don't know a lot about Bad Bunny. Didn't until he was not announced to be the Super Bowl halftime performer. And what I have been reading though is since he won Album of the Year and it's a non-English speaking album, there's been a little controversy there. And I'm sitting there thinking, look, music is music. This is again my own opinion. I mean, obviously they voted. They decided that was Album of the Year. I'd be interested in your thoughts.
So wasn't it Despacito that he was on my radar? I think, right? Am I talking the right song? And that was a billion stream. This was many years ago.
Years ago.
Having spent a little time in Puerto Rico for Aaron's birthday 3 years ago, we were there in 2023 for a week, 5 days, and with a rental car. And most people spend just their time in San Juan, and old San Juan is absolutely gorgeous. In old San Juan, we got to see where they filmed parts of Despacito, which was a huge cultural phenomenon on YouTube. I mean, for those who don't know, and most people that are watching this will probably know something about that. But Bad Bunny, you saw advertisements. I think him and what's the other guy? Anthony, help me out.
Mark Anthony.
I think they were on a co-headlining bill together at the arena in San Juan, and there were advertisements for it upcoming. I think like in April or May or something. We were there in January. We wanted to go somewhere warm for Aaron's birthday, but you heard Bad Bunny's music all the time. I knew who he was because he just, had a cultural impact. His music, that Latino kind of with hip hop kind of influenced in there, and the synth pop and all that. He's a unique hybrid of all these different influences. It's definitely American. It's definitely an American because it's got that melting pot of crossover influences like nobody else.
And it's going to be interesting to see what the quote unquote opinions or fallout are, as we go on because of the big win, coupled with the fact that the big game is this Sunday. So it's, you've got the Grammy Awards and you've got the Super Bowl,
But
so
it's about that halftime show, dude. What is he going to do? Like when Kendrick Lamar did it last year, and a very, very clever for people. I mean, there are people who have done an entire hour dissertation on YouTube,
right,
breaking down all the different elements. Like there's the PlayStation element of the people, and I was like, wow. There was a lot of thought. Kendrick Lamar is a very thoughtful artist. I think some people are thinking he's kind of from Pimp a Butterfly up to a certain point. I think people are just like, he was on a plateau, and right now he's trying to. I think he's entering his second phase. He's going through kind of not an intermittent period, in his creativity and what have you. Listen, this guy is brilliant.
It's a
Prince, he
transition.
was on
It's a
Prince's radar, for God's sake, and had him
right
out of Paisley.
for me at Paisley Park. So, and we know what happened at the 2025 Grammys. Kendrick Lamar had like 5 wins.
Oh, come
Okay,
on.
I mean, he just cleaned up. I think he had what 3 or 4
He's
this year.
he's
Um,
brilliant. He's
so
brilliant, dude. He's brilliant.
the only problem I have is when he did his Super Bowl performance last year, and now Bad Bunny will do his this year. Some big shoes to fill with the best Super Bowl performance that ever was, and that would be Prince in
We all know
2007.
that.
Just saying. Sorry, I had to throw that out there.
And you know, people would say that Prince wasn't being political, but all along the Watchtower has some interesting allegorical.
Fair. That is fair.
I mean,
Let's
from a musician standpoint, come on, the guy didn't lip sync. Like, people talk about Michael Jackson. I've seen all the hype about Michael Jackson led the way for the Super Bowl halftime special. Yeah, but dude, he was lip syncing to tracks. I'm sorry. I love Michael. Michael is an amazing was an amazing gifted songwriter, musician, dancer, entertainer, etc. Prince was not using one lip sync track to save his life.
right
Prince was live. To me, that gets
in
all
a
the respect.
in a
And in
downpour.
the downpour,
Downpour.
you can't fuck with that.
Right.
Sorry, you
You
just
just can't.
can't.
You
You
can't.
can't.
Okay. Let's talk about Billie Eilish because Billie had a couple of comments during the
I missed those. I saw
so,
her on the show, but I must have missed the comment.
so she won Song of the Year for Wildflower.
See,
Okay.
I fell asleep, but
It's a good song, okay, and I have
yeah.
no problem with winning. Then she gets up there and she starts talking about people living on stolen ground, okay, and then the backlash with Billie was, well, this is Billie Eilish's $14 million mansion and where she lives, and you're living on stolen ground, and it's almost
Okay.
like that overshadowed her win,
Yeah.
because she voiced her opinion. And so again, it's to the point of, damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you don't say anything, you're a coward. If you do say something, then you're holier than thou, but you might be two-faced. Again,
If I'm being honest, I mean, yeah, that's kind of you can't have it both ways. You can listen, to say that I've been born into privilege I understand that that's what, I have a lot of privileges that a lot of other people. Let's just be honest here, okay? But, and I'm very aware of that, and I'm not proud of it at all. But she's young to say something like that, and when you have a $14 million mansion, look, I'm not saying she didn't earn it, she didn't pay, she didn't grind away. Her brother, who's a brilliant musician, who's really when I think of Billie Eilish, I kind of think of the Carpenters in a way.
mm,
Yeah, the brother sister duo thing, where Richard Carpenter wrote basically all the music, and she was a hell of a drummer. She's very talented. And
right.
Billie Eilish, very talented. He comes off as hypocritical. Do I think she doesn't care about people? She seems like a very caring, gifted artist. And may I say, the last couple albums that I have listened to, the production on her albums is incredible sound production and sound quality. And she doesn't overdo it. She's a very talented artist. I think Prince would have dug it. If I'm not speaking for Prince, but I would bet any money that Prince would probably have dug
You
Billie
probably,
Eilish. I think he would have dug it.
but it's no different, what she said versus her being a person of wealth and means. It's no different. I shouldn't say it's no different. I'm going to kind of compare it, not
Yeah,
100%, but I'm going to kind of compare it to, when you have a famous rapper, okay,
yeah.
who's talking about the streets and all that. Whereas that may have been where they grew up, but now they live in a $10 million mansion. They're driving a Ferrari. People claim that they're
Kid Rock.
disingenuous. You know, I didn't say anything about that, but you did. So since we're there, maybe we should talk about that because
Sure.
you've gotten to the point where Kid Rock has his opinions, very opinionated,
Uh,
and he claims that, I believe he said that his is the real Super Bowl halftime show that he's going to be putting on, and he does presents himself as
All
man of
American. It's
people,
an all American halftime, Jay.
but he is a multimillionaire.
Yep.
And he is a person of wealth and a person of means. So how is it any different for Billie Eilish than it is for Kid Rock?
I think you kind of answered the question.
Right. It
Question
was
was
kind of
kind of
rhetorical.
I think there's a lot of yeah. It's a rhetorical question, in short.
But
I think that are
let me say this part, and that is that the conversation that we're having right now, the debate that we're having is for lack of a better term, and call me corny if you want to, what makes this country and this democracy what it is?
Yeah.
Because we have the right to our opinion, we have the right to voice that opinion, and
Yeah.
so do other people. It's
Yeah.
the dialogue, as long as it's thoughtful, intelligent, constructive. It's the dialogue that helps us live our lives, that helps us
I
get through these issues.
I will tell you, people may have an idea of who they think I am politically, and that's my own personal business, but I voted for a Republican governor twice in my life. It didn't just necessarily always go along party lines, but if I felt like I trusted somebody, I voted that way. And I'm not perfect, at all. I will never claim to be that. And there's a lot of broken things about the system and the way it's right, things that stand as they are. Democracy is crumbling before our very eyes, and the world's watching us on that. That's my
But
opinion, of course, but it's just
But I think what we don't do is, and to your point, we don't define ourselves by a political party
no,
or a political ideology. To your point,
no,
you voted for a Republican governor twice, and people would never know that. I
no,
have voted Republican before. It's also
yeah,
my business, right?
yeah,
But the way I vote and the way I
yeah,
think is what I'm feeling, what I think is the difference between what right and wrong, and what is going to be the best thing, again, in my humble opinion, for the country. I don't
yeah,
want to be labeled as this, that, or the other thing.
yeah.
Which again brings me back to the Grammys. I don't think that artists should be labeled one thing or another thing just because they're
Just
celebrities or they
humanity or
have
just
money.
yeah.
Exactly right.
Well, you see comments on the reason why we have to bring this up, Jace, and then to trampede over your words here as I always do.
Stop away.
So we often find ourselves, seeing people foam at the mouth on social media about Bruce Springsteen is so woke. I'm like, have you ever heard? I mean, to go back to that point, have you ever heard his albums?
Right.
He's been political his whole life. That's his
Whole
thing.
career.
He's a disciple of Bob Dylan and didn't get much more political than Bob.
Right.
Particularly early in his career. So, I mean,
I mean, at the end of the day, we have a responsibility. Here's a perfect example.
yeah,
I love Ricky Gervais. Okay, I loved Ricky when he was doing the
yeah.
Golden Globes. Okay,
Oh,
his biting wit and his sarcasm, and I'm going to
yeah.
be a little colorful just for a second. But what he in essence said to the celebrities was, "You're rich. Shut the fuck up and get your award and go sit down."
That
That's
was my
ex- that
favorite.
that's what he said. And so, I mean, it was funny and it was compelling, but then it gets to the point where, like I talked at the top of this conversation, there's still people with ideas and with values and with opinions, and you put them in a forum where you give them an opportunity to speak. Okay, whether you and it's not just thank you, mom and dad,
Yeah.
whatever. It's I'm going to bring up what's on my mind. So again, it's if you and I can sit here and do this as a couple of jamokes from Connecticut and Pennsylvania, you know, what's the difference between somebody doing it because they're in Beverly Hills, Hollywood, Los Angeles, whatever. It's what makes us all equal, right?
I just love being called a jamoke.
And we are. We're just a couple of jamokes at the end of
Well,
the day. Blessed to be able to do what we do, but
yeah, I've really enjoyed this journey with you and Huck, man. But you've been with me since day one, and it's just, yeah, it's definitely cheaper than therapy.
absolutely. And it
Well,
and well, and quite frankly, it is a form of therapy, I think. So
I agree. Listen, and I hope anybody listening, our diehards that listen to every single episode, thank you. We've noticed some slow but steady uptick in our new folks join the Vibe campaign here.
I
And
love
thank you for
I
being here.
love our international following. When I was looking at our analytics
Yeah, UK
the
and
other day,
France,
UK, France, Spain. So
Germany.
we've,
Yeah,
we've got a decent following, and we're grateful to everyone. But let me switch gears for a minute,
yeah.
Kurt, and let's just talk very briefly about some of the fun things that we have coming up this year.
Other than celebration?
Well, I'm thinking, we're going to have some amazing guests
Oh,
on, and we're not going to tip our hat there because
yeah.
we've got some amazing guests in the pipeline. And I know we tease that a lot, and then we do come through because we've had some great shows.
Oh
But I
my
think
God.
you and I are going to be in New York City in April.
Yeah. So Law, our buddy Law, who recently I came in contact with somebody in my wine and spirits world who also is in the music world, is perhaps a future guest, and used to work at Warner Brothers when Lenny Waronker was at the end of his tenure and career.
Oh, Austin.
Austin, you're right, yeah, as well. And New Law. In fact, when I sent a picture, he was like, "Oh my God, that's Chrissy." So that perhaps is another guest, but we're going to be in New York City at the Cutting Room on, is it a Thursday, April 17th?
Friday, April 17th.
Friday, April 17th. At the Cutting Room in New York City. I've never been to the Cutting Room. You've been to the Cutting Room.
Great club. Great
I've
club.
never been.
You're going to love the vibe. You're going to love the staff. I can't wait to get back.
But I just get to see Law. Law is like I don't know how to put this. Law is like his own Kevin Bacon. He's got like 12 degrees of separation.
Right.
He has such a connective tissue to so many different artists, and not just musicians, but art artists, all different types of groups.
And he's going to be doing a tribute to Prince,
yeah.
but he's going to be doing a lot of deep cuts. And there is going to be a section and a segment in tribute to Jelly Bean Johnson.
Yeah.
Well, which I was going to be fantastic.
He has had a creative and friend. Well, he considers like him a father figure. Uncle. And collaborated with Jelly Bean. Jelly Bean just one of the last things he recorded for Law was a song that's supposed to be on the Jets album. The Jets are.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to try to see a couple people while we're out there. I have not reached out to who, but we have to do that.
But when we're thinking about an event that weekend.
Thank you, Jay. I'm sorry.
I wanted to lead you there.
D'Angelo Duff. Polished solid. Folks, what did Prince do this week? Going through the Dwayne Tudall books with Michael Dean, Celie McGinnis, the psychedelic poet that he is, and Celie. Just shout out to all your folks over there. And again, shout out to your fallen brother Ricky D'Angelo. We know, he's a huge loss to you and to the greater Prince communities. At any rate, D'Angelo's doing a symposium, and it's for the 40th anniversary. Is it I Wonder You 40?
I think so. Yeah.
It's I Wonder You 40. But that's going to be going on that weekend, 18th, 19th.
And is that NYU? Is that where it's
I believe it's at New York University. So, and she makes the events to come to free. But she always has to go getting grant money for it and what have you. And she gives so much to the Prince community.
Right.
I mean, she wrote the liner notes. She wrote a major portion of the liner notes for the Diamonds and Pearls box set. She's been on funk documentaries. I mean, this woman is like walking the walk and talking the talk more than any of us.
And I've wanted to attend symposium for some time.
Me too, dude.
And now I think we have the opportunity to do so. And so there is a great chance that the Electric Vibe will be in the house.
Yes.
That weekend.
We are making it. Yeah. You and I got to talk with some plans.
Logistics and plans.
Oh, man. But this will be fun.
Right.
It's another adventure for us to be out there in person.
And then, of course, our trip in June, which is signed, sealed, and delivered. Just waiting for the celebration 2020.
I can imagine, and I'm sure many people, if anybody has any information about it, but your thoughts, if you want to put it in the comments below, regarding celebration, I can imagine that the Prince Estate has got to be watching what's going on in Minneapolis and going, dude, what do we do about announcing this thing? That's right. Just, I mean,
it is what's happening going to affect planning. I can't imagine that it wouldn't. Do I see the estate just canceling it altogether? I don't, particularly with again the amount of people that I've seen that say yes, we're going. This is what Prince would want. It's a spirit in the spirit of love, harmony, and peace. Quite frankly, it's gotten to the point where I'm encouraged by all the people that are still going.
Yeah,
and obviously I'm going to be there. You're going to be there, so we're going to do what we have to do.
We're going to do.
And despite everything that's going on, and I'm not going to suggest that I am as close to the tragedies and things that are happening out in Minnesota, but I am humbled and encouraged and enthused by the people that have sent me private messages. Jay David, we're going to be there. What hotel are you staying at? We're going to be staying at the same hotel. Let's meet up. I can't wait to meet you. I can't wait for us to be. So it's that kind of stuff that helps to temper, I think, a lot of what's going on. And if there's
Of course.
anything that we can take away during that time, it is that spirit of community.
It's a very special celebration because it's the 10th anniversary. I mean, it's the first decade. We've been a decade without, we're coming up on a decade without Prince being alive in our lives.
Right.
And that's significant. It's
Right.
really significant. Bowie, same thing, man. You
Right.
know, we've been now over 10 years, because he passed away in January, and we released just less than a week before his death, his
Right.
last album, Black Star. We're without him for 10 years. Then we're coming up on George Michael. It's just like, oh my God, later.
Did you know, speaking of George Michael, did you happen to know that I saw him in concert 4 times?
Yes, you did.
Okay,
Perhaps we're going to have an episode, folks, where we have a memorabilia episode when Hockey's on, myself is on, to get our old tour books out and ticket stubs and
kind of relive some.
and anybody that wants to put in, I guess you can't put pictures of that in. You could on the Facebook page.
Right. We can't, right? And of course, when we do the episode, we'll be able to put our images and things like that. But
Yeah,
that's another, that's another something that we have coming up in
yeah,
addition to our lineup of guests and our upcoming trips and shows
yeah.
now.
We actually had a guest lined up for tonight that would definitely speak to the times that we're living in such a thoughtful and studied way. But we'll have more for you as soon as we reschedule that special guest.
Right.
That's going to be a compelling episode. I
It
look
really
forward
is.
to.
I'm
Okay.
looking forward to that. So,
Yeah.
Kurt, it's been great, brother,
Yeah,
talking,
man.
catching up, to your point, cheaper than therapy, but I think for me, it's better than therapy.
Absolutely. No question. No copay either.
Exactly. Well, one way or another, we both pay. Okay.
We do split it down the middle somewhere. But in all seriousness, folks, if you like what you heard and saw tonight, and thank you for those who tuned in, and we hope we're speaking to a lot of the greater community out there, that we are really rooting for peace and happiness and love for all of us through these very difficult times. And, I just want to say that, every time we end an episode, every time I use this phrase, it just gets more and more meaningful and more relevant. And that is, a rising tide lifts all boats. But before I turn it to Jay, he always reminds me, I wanted to actually say, please tell a friend, subscribe, hit the like button. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we are on TikTok, we're on Blue Sky, the Electric Vibe. Look us up. The logo that's behind Jay, as his background, is what you're looking for. And we just want to keep this momentum going. It's more than just about a trip down purple lane for us. And like Jay's point, we can't ignore the times that we're living in, but we can try to make them better for one another. Jay?
Absolutely. Kurt, well said. You're a tough act to follow, but I do appreciate the fact that we have this forum for however many people watch us and listen to us, and who appreciate us. We're blessed to have this forum where we can share and hopefully maybe make somebody's life a little bit brighter, a little bit better. And maybe we can have these thoughtful and constructive conversations just to affect change, even in some small way. And I think that that's our responsibility. And it's not one that we take lightly. And so I like to close out every night saying, peace, good night. And remember, when the universe comes knocking, you have to answer that door. Peace.